A white landscape stretching across the northern Atlantic has long appeared silent, unchanging, and empty. Yet every year that the ice retreats, it reveals evidence that challenges assumptions about Earth's history. Ancient forests where only snow now survives, DNA preserved for millions of years, human settlements abandoned under mysterious circumstances, military installations buried beneath glaciers, even remarkably preserved human remains whose stories remain incomplete. Greenland's frozen surface is proving to be far more than an enormous sheet of ice. It is an archive unlike any other on Earth. Every layer that melts raises new questions. Why did warm forests once flourish so close to the Arctic? Why were massive Ice Age animals able to survive there? Why did entire communities disappear despite adapting to one of the world's harshest environments? And perhaps the greatest question of all, what else remains hidden inside ice that has protected its secrets for thousands, even millions, of years? For decades, Greenland was viewed primarily through the lens of climate science. Researchers monitored the island because its ice sheet contains enough frozen water to raise global sea levels dramatically if it were to melt completely. Satellites measured shrinking glaciers, aircraft mapped changes in elevation, and climate records documented rising temperatures across the Arctic. Yet while scientists focused on the future implications of melting ice, the retreating glaciers began revealing something equally extraordinary about the distant past. Greenland is the largest island on Earth, covering approximately 836,000 square miles, or around 2,166,000 square kilometers. Roughly 4/5 of that immense landmass remains covered by a single ice sheet reaching thicknesses of more than 2 miles or over 3 kilometers in some locations. That frozen blanket has existed through multiple ice ages, preserving traces of ancient environments beneath it like pages sealed inside an enormous geological archive. Unlike rainforests, deserts, or ocean floors, where erosion constantly reshapes landscapes, Greenland's ice has acted as a remarkably effective protective cover. Sediments, plants, pollen, microorganisms, and even human artifacts can remain isolated for extraordinary lengths of time. As glaciers slowly advance and retreat over thousands of years, they capture fragments of entire ecosystems before locking them away in permanently frozen conditions. One of the most astonishing discoveries emerged when researchers examined sediment collected from northern Greenland. Hidden within grains of sand and clay were microscopic fragments of ancient genetic material unlike anything previously recovered. Instead of fossilized bones or preserved leaves, scientists found environmental DNA left behind by organisms that once lived there. The discovery transformed expectations about the survival of genetic material. Conventional understanding suggested DNA deteriorates relatively quickly once organisms die, especially over geological timescales. Yet the frozen sediments of Greenland preserved fragments estimated to be approximately 2 million years old, making them the oldest DNA ever identified. Rather than representing a single organism, the recovered genetic material painted an entire ecological picture. Researchers identified traces belonging to numerous plant species, insects, microorganisms, and large mammals. Together, these fragments reconstructed an environment dramatically different from today's frozen landscape. Instead of endless snowfields, northern Greenland once supported thriving forests dominated by poplar, birch, cedar, and other tree species. Shrubs and flowering plants covered the landscape. Rivers flowed across valleys supporting diverse vegetation. The climate was considerably warmer than modern Arctic conditions, creating habitats capable of sustaining large animals. Among the most remarkable genetic signatures were those associated with mastodons, distant relatives of modern elephants. Their presence surprised researchers because these enormous mammals had never been expected so far north. Standing several yards tall and weighing multiple tons, mastodons required abundant vegetation to survive. Their DNA confirmed that Greenland's ancient forests provided enough food to sustain populations of these giant herbivores. The recovered DNA also pointed toward the presence of reindeer, hares, geese, rodents, and countless smaller organisms forming interconnected ecosystems. Rather than isolated species surviving at the edge of habitability, Greenland hosted rich biological communities that flourished during a warmer chapter in Earth's climatic history. Understanding those ancient ecosystems carries significance extending beyond historical curiosity. Earth's climate has naturally shifted throughout geological history. Greenland's ancient forests demonstrate that environments now considered permanently frozen once experienced temperatures capable of supporting entirely different forms of life. Those records provide valuable comparisons for understanding long-term climate processes and ecosystem responses. The reason such ancient DNA survived lies largely within Greenland's permafrost. Permafrost refers to ground remaining frozen continuously for at least 2 consecutive years, although in Greenland many areas have remained frozen for tens of thousands or even millions of years. Low temperatures dramatically slow biological decay. Combined with stable sediment conditions, the frozen ground effectively became an enormous natural preservation chamber. Unlike fossils, which preserve physical structures through mineral replacement, environmental DNA captures biological traces left behind by countless organisms. Every root, leaf, feather, skin cell, or droplet of bodily fluid contributed microscopic genetic fragments to surrounding sediments. Once frozen, those fragments became locked inside geological layers waiting to be discovered. Permafrost therefore functions as far more than frozen soil. It serves as a time capsule recording ecosystems with remarkable precision. Each layer corresponds to different climatic periods, allowing researchers to reconstruct changing environments across immense stretches of Earth's history. Yet Greenland's frozen archive preserves more than prehistoric ecosystems. Human history also remains locked beneath the ice. In northwestern Greenland, naturally cold conditions have preserved remarkably ancient human remains. Some of the most famous examples are naturally mummified individuals whose bodies survived because freezing temperatures prevented normal decomposition. Unlike Egyptian mummies created intentionally through elaborate burial practices, these Arctic mummies owe their preservation almost entirely to environmental conditions. Skin, hair, clothing, tattoos, and internal tissues survived for centuries, offering exceptionally detailed glimpses into daily life among ancient Arctic communities. Researchers examined clothing constructed from animal skins, sophisticated sewing techniques, hunting tools, and evidence of diets heavily dependent upon marine resources. Despite the extraordinary preservation, many questions remain unanswered. Individual identities remain uncertain. Social relationships among the preserved individuals are still debated. Their precise journeys across Greenland's challenging landscapes continue to be studied. Every preserved body contributes another piece of history, while simultaneously reminding researchers of how much remains unknown. Elsewhere across Greenland, melting ice has begun exposing evidence from more recent chapters of human occupation. Few episodes remain as captivating as the arrival of Norse settlers during the late first millennium. Led by explorers from Iceland, Viking communities established farming settlements along Greenland's southwestern coast. These colonies survived for centuries despite short growing seasons, limited resources, and long winters. Archaeological evidence reveals surprisingly organized communities complete with churches, farms, workshops, and trading networks. Livestock grazed during brief Arctic summers. Sheep, goats, and cattle became central to daily life. Walrus ivory emerged as a valuable export reaching European markets. For generations, these settlements endured environmental challenges that would have discouraged many other societies. Yet sometime during the early 15th century, the Norse communities disappeared. No single explanation fully accounts for their disappearance. Archaeological records suggest multiple pressures converged over time. Regional temperatures declined during the climatic period often called the Little Ice Age. Growing seasons shortened. Sea ice complicated trade routes connecting Greenland with Europe. Economic demand for walrus ivory weakened as alternative sources became available. Competition for limited resources intensified. The settlements gradually emptied. Excavated churches remained standing without congregations. Farm buildings deteriorated. Domestic animals vanished. Written records from Europe eventually ceased mentioning Greenland's Norse population altogether. Their disappearance continues attracting attention because it illustrates the vulnerability of even well-established communities confronting long-term environmental and economic change. Rather than representing one dramatic event, the archaeological evidence increasingly points toward gradual decline shaped by interconnected pressures that accumulated over generations. modern technology continues revealing new evidence about Greenland's hidden history. Satellite observations, airborne radar, ice-penetrating instruments, and advanced computer modeling now allow researchers to visualize landscapes buried beneath thousands of feet of ice. Radar surveys have uncovered mountain ranges, deep valleys, ancient river channels, and enormous impact structures hidden below the ice sheet. Some buried valleys extend for hundreds of miles or hundreds of kilometers, suggesting that Greenland possessed complex drainage systems before becoming engulfed by glaciers. One particularly significant discovery involved identifying ancient river networks carved long before modern ice covered the island. These channels demonstrate that Greenland experienced prolonged periods during which flowing water shaped its terrain much as rivers shape landscapes elsewhere today. The buried topography also influences modern glacier movement. Valleys direct flowing ice toward the coast, affecting the speed at which glaciers transport frozen water into surrounding oceans. Consequently, mapping Greenland's ancient landscape improves predictions concerning future ice sheet behavior. Not every discovery beneath Greenland relates to distant prehistory. During the Cold War, the United States constructed one of the Arctic's most unusual military facilities beneath Greenland's ice. Officially presented as a scientific research station, the installation known as Camp Century consisted of tunnels carved directly into the ice sheet. Completed during the late 1950s, the underground complex contained living quarters, laboratories, storage facilities, workshops, power generation systems, and transportation corridors stretching for several miles or several kilometers. A portable nuclear reactor supplied electricity, making the installation an extraordinary engineering achievement for its time. Behind the public scientific mission, military planners also evaluated a far more ambitious proposal. Project Iceworm envisioned deploying hundreds of nuclear missiles within an extensive network of tunnels beneath Greenland's ice. Engineers hoped constantly shifting snow would conceal missile positions from potential adversaries. Reality proved less cooperative. The ice sheet behaved as a moving material rather than a stable foundation. Tunnels gradually deformed under immense pressure. Walls shifted, ceilings compressed. Maintenance requirements increased continuously. Eventually, engineers concluded the concept could not function as intended. Camp Century was abandoned after only a few years. For decades, the abandoned installation remained entombed beneath accumulating snow. Waste materials, equipment, fuel, construction debris, and other remnants disappeared beneath thick layers of ice. At the time, planners assumed the ice sheet would preserve everything indefinitely. Changing climatic conditions have altered those assumptions. As Greenland's ice continues changing, researchers have considered the possibility that buried infrastructure from Camp Century may eventually become exposed if sufficient melting occurs over future centuries. Although no immediate emergence is expected, the site illustrates how decisions made during one era can create environmental questions for future generations. Greenland's retreating ice has also revealed ancient plants emerging after remaining frozen since the last ice age. Mosses, shrubs, and other vegetation uncovered along glacier margins have provided direct evidence that some landscapes remained ice-free more recently than previously believed. Radiocarbon dating allows scientists to determine when those plants last received sunlight before glaciers advanced across them. These discoveries help reconstruct the timing of glacier growth and retreat, improving understanding of natural climate variability over thousands of years. Ice cores extracted from Greenland provide another remarkable archive. Cylinders drilled through thousands of feet, or hundreds of meters, of ice preserve tiny air bubbles trapped as snow accumulated year after year. Those bubbles contain samples of Earth's ancient atmosphere. Scientists analyze concentrations of carbon dioxide, methane, volcanic ash, dust, sea salt, and other substances preserved within successive layers. Annual snowfall creates chronological records extending back hundreds of thousands of years. Unlike tree rings recording conditions in individual forests, Greenland's ice cores preserve atmospheric information reflecting global environmental processes. They reveal volcanic eruptions, changes in greenhouse gas concentrations, shifts in ocean circulation, and abrupt climatic transitions that affected much of the planet. Together with buried DNA, preserved sediments, archaeological remains, and radar mapping. These frozen records transform Greenland into one of Earth's richest natural archives. Yet every new discovery reinforces another reality. The same melting responsible for exposing remarkable evidence also threatens the preservation of countless undiscovered materials. Organic remains surviving because of permanently frozen conditions may deteriorate rapidly once exposed to warmer temperatures, oxygen, and microbial activity. Archaeological sites protected beneath stable ice for centuries may begin degrading within only a few seasons after exposure. This creates an unusual scientific race. As glaciers retreat, opportunities emerge to document previously inaccessible landscapes. At the same time, those newly revealed environments may begin changing immediately after exposure. Researchers increasingly rely upon satellites, drones, airborne surveys, and rapid field expeditions to identify vulnerable locations before evidence disappears. Greenland therefore occupies an unusual position within modern science. It represents both one of Earth's fastest changing regions and one of its greatest historical archives. Every retreating glacier expands access to information while simultaneously reminding researchers that preservation cannot be assumed indefinitely. The island's significance extends beyond Arctic geography. Ancient DNA reveals ecosystems capable of surviving dramatically different climates. Ice cores preserve atmospheric history reaching back through multiple ice ages. Archaeological remains illuminate human adaptation under extreme environmental conditions. Buried military installations document geopolitical strategies shaped by 20th century tensions. Every category of discovery contributes to a broader understanding of Earth's environmental and human history. Far from being an empty expanse of snow, Greenland emerges as an enormous repository connecting biology, geology, archaeology, climatology, and history. Forests replaced by glaciers. Giant mammals remembered only through microscopic DNA. Medieval settlements abandoned after centuries of endurance. Underground military cities concealed beneath moving ice. Human remains preserved with astonishing detail. Each revelation expands understanding while generating entirely new questions. The image of Greenland as an unchanging frozen wilderness continues to fade with every scientific expedition. Instead, the island increasingly appears as one of the world's greatest natural archives, preserving evidence spanning millions of years. Ancient climates, vanished ecosystems, forgotten communities, technological ambitions, and environmental change all remain layered within its ice and sediments. Every season of melting uncovers another fragment of that immense record. Some discoveries answer questions that have puzzled researchers for generations. Others challenge long-standing assumptions about where species once lived, how civilizations adapted, and how Earth's climate has transformed across deep time. Many discoveries simply remind us that the archive remains incomplete. Large portions of Greenland's ice sheet still conceal landscapes no human has ever seen. Vast regions remain unexplored beneath thousands of feet, or several kilometers, of frozen cover. As scientific technology advances and retreating ice reveals additional terrain, new chapters of Earth's history will almost certainly emerge. Greenland is proving to be far more than the world's second largest ice sheet. It is a living archive where biology, geology, archaeology, and history intersect. Every newly exposed valley, preserved sediment, recovered artifact, and ancient strand of DNA reshapes humanity's understanding of the planet's past. The frozen island that once appeared silent now speaks through evidence accumulated across millions of years, reminding us that some of Earth's greatest discoveries have been waiting patiently beneath the ice all along.